Hi, I'm Lili. Today I'm going to show you some behind the scenes of my last stop motion animation. If you haven't seen the short film, I'm going to put a link above and in the description below. In my last two videos, I've showed in details how to make the living room from scratch and the whole streets. Today I'm going to show you some behind the scenes of how I've animated those sets and some tips and hopefully something that could be useful for your own project. I'm also going to show how I made the cloud and the water effects and my overall setup depending on the scenes. Welcome to my workshop. This is my usual setup. In terms of equipment, the main camera is a Canon EOS RP. I've got an LED ring light around it, an LED desk lamp clamp on the table, a kit of 3 panel lights, LEDs GVM 800D. The laptop has Dragon Frame installed on it, and all the windows are blacked out. I always try to create sets that are very flexible to give me more options during the shoot and make the animation much easier. Depending on the scene, I'm going to use only one component of that set. So one of the first scenes, for example, I only need the back part of that street. When you do some blinking, it's very detailed, so you need to make sure that it's very easy to access. So you can go back and forth between your computer and the set and adjust whatever is needed. Now for the cloud effects, I've installed a piece of acrylic sheet on top of my set. As you can see, it's high-tech installation, so I just basically put a little bit of timber to hold the acrylic sheet in place and lay some cotton on top of it. Initially, my plan was to shoot the shadow that the light was casting through the clouds made of cotton, but when I looked underneath, I really liked the way they looked, so I decided to lower my camera to create a nicer angle, and then I had to build up the back because otherwise you will see my room through. So I came up with just leftover foam board. As you can see, it's very detailed, beautifully crafted, but it works. Then I had to decide which direction the wind was going and then move my clouds just a little bit every time. So this is the raw footage. This is what it looks like when I've passed it through After Effects. I'm a beginner with this software, so I'm aware that you can do something much more advanced and impressive with this, but that's where I'm at with the software. For the next scene, someone was passing by, so I've used my walking track system. If you want to know a bit more about it, there's a different tutorial. I will link it in the description below. Walking scenes are very challenging, so it's just a basic tool that I've come up with to make it a bit easier. Then come the water effects with the water can. My initial plan was to use some lube and a syringe. That seems like a great idea at first. I've set up my laptop close by so I can go back and forth very quickly to build up the little drop on the water can. I had my syringe ready with some tissue, and even though I've tried to be very careful and press very gently on the syringe, well, let's just say it wasn't a complete success. So now that my set was fully lubricated, I had to move to my plan B. The plan B was using some hand sanitizer. It was a bit thicker in terms of consistency, and I used a toothpick to apply it to the water can. To create the illusion of the water running out of the water can, it's very tricky because you need to create different kind of drops and you working against gravity. If I show you the same scene very slowly so you can see the difference between the shots, you can see that sometimes there's a small drop, then it's just a bit bigger, and then it's dropping, and then it's completely dropped. It's very hard to create. Honestly, I just spent 2 hours on that scene, going back and forth, and by the time you create the right drop that you wanted and then you run to your computer, the gel is already falling down and you have to start the whole thing again, or the water can has been shifted slightly. Honestly, I was losing my freaking mind on this tiny water can, so that was a challenge. But anyway, I was happy when it was done and I can move to the next scene. I needed to extend my street for the next scene, so I push this first component of my set backwards so I can squeeze in the next part of the streets. I've added some walls to create the sky effect in the background. When I created the set, I made sure that I can remove every single house very easily. So each of them is holding with just a little brackets at the back. Having more space between houses means I can go back and forth between my laptop and the puppets to animate them. That means if I want to move the camera exactly where one of the houses is, I can very easily move it around. And if suddenly I realize I need more space, I can simply take my drill, remove the next house, and adjust it until I got the right angle with my camera. And it's not just the puppet above the set, it's also from underneath that you need to access. If you have a walking scene, most likely you're gonna have some screws underneath the feet. When it comes to the screws that I use to put underneath the puppets to connect the feet, sometimes for whatever reason the screws doesn't want to get into the nuts underneath the feet, and I recently discovered something brilliant in my DIY shop where I spend way too much time. It was in the plastering section and I found a new kind of hook. It's called a hollow wall anchors with L-hook bolts. And it's so much easier because it got a good grip. From now on, I'm definitely going to work with them instead of just normal screws. They're much easier to manage. When I moved to the next scene, I wanted to be able to be completely sideways with the puppets and the way I was shooting it. So I shift the whole set on my table. I moved the laptop nearby so I can have a quick access between the puppet and the laptop. Once I was done with the streets, I took it apart, moved the components around and started working on the living room set. For the living room set, 2 walls were fixed and 2 were flexible. So for the opening scene, for example, I needed to add 1 wall to close near the door. Then when I moved to the next scene, I took that wall out and then take the other wall near the staircase so I can close that side of the room. So now for the fire effects, I've showed in my tutorial about the living room in details how I made the little stove from scratch with Worbla cardboard, how I made the flame with clear Worbla. To animate them, I had to remove the whole door because the hinges were stuck with super glue, then take the little flame out, put a new one in, and then put the whole door back in. Move the little puppet's head slightly, and then do the whole thing again. Take the door out, take the flame out, new flame in, door back in. It was time consuming, but really worth it in the end. Thanks for watching. I hope this video was useful to you. Good luck on your own project, and just remember, patience is the most important ingredient of stop motion animation. Take care.